Hi, my name is Bill Abernathy, and Tim and I are here to talk to you a little bit about church growth services. We just finished the initial stages of a capital campaign with funds that are now committed and being given for an expansion over 3 years of our children's wing. So Tim, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
So my name is Tim Parks. I'm a deacon here at Berean, and I got the honor to be the chair of the building committee and the chair of the capital campaign committee. So Pastor Bill, what were your primary emotions prior to the start of the capital campaign with church growth services, and what were your primary emotions at the conclusion of the capital campaign?
Yeah, well, I've never done a capital campaign, and since I was approaching retirement, I really wondered whether or not we should do one. I was pretty hesitant, as Tim knows, but the pre-campaign assessment that Church Growth Services did for us, along with their calm assurances and God's work in my heart, brought me to a place where I was excited about doing a capital campaign. The process was time intensive, but by the end of the campaign, I was very thankful for what God had done and the help of Church Growth Services and Tim in that campaign. So what about you, Tim? What were your emotions and thoughts at the beginning and the end of the campaign?
Well, I had never been a part of leading a capital campaign before either, and I wondered how well we could do it, and I wondered how uncomfortable we were going to be with the process of doing it. And I felt with Pastor Bill and with Church Growth Services, we're both great partners and made the process very comfortable, and I was delighted with our church results. So Pastor Bill, what do you think was the greatest benefit to you personally from our partnership with Church Growth Services? And also, what was the greatest benefit to Berean?
Well, I think Church Growth Services walked us through the whole campaign. They encouraged us, they asked questions, they provided expertise and support that were invaluable. I felt like the forms and the templates that they provided made it possible for us to not have to reinvent the wheel. And their careful phone and written surveys gave us great data. I feel like Church Growth Services involvement really benefited the congregation and me by giving us a sense of confidence that we could really do this. So let me ask you the same question, Tim. What do you think was the greatest benefit from our partnership with Church Growth Services for the church and for you?
Yeah, good question. I think Church Growth Services made the path really doable. They made it clear for us and made it so we could really walk that path and do well with it. They also took our biggest fears, as I mentioned earlier, away, enabled us to also flex the process. So some of the things they recommend, we said, hey, that doesn't feel like our church. And they said, that's fine. Here's some options for you to make it your own.
Yeah, I appreciated that too. So in addition to meeting the campaign's financial goal, what non-financial benefits do you think resulted from our partnership with Church Growth Services?
Yeah, one major benefit I think we had was the unity that our leadership had going through the process. I think these processes can be stressful for a lot of reasons, and with the experience that Church Growth Services had in coaching us, they made the topic really something that we could do well with. But how do you think Berean benefited, Pastor Bill?
Well, I felt like the capital campaign itself resulted in excitement and anticipation and a desire on the church's part to move forward. There was positive momentum, and I appreciated the strong emphasis that Church Growth Services places on the spiritual component of the campaign, and that allowed the congregation to undergird the whole campaign with prayer as we sought God together. How would you describe the spiritual growth or the church momentum that you saw occurring during the campaign?
I think one of the most powerful things for me was your sermon series when we went through the campaign or getting ready for the campaign about when the children of Israel had to cross in the Jordan River by faith in God. And I felt like our capital campaign was and is a journey of faith. Each step was a, can we do this and how are we going to do this? Is this the right time for this? And it really stretched us in that saying, we don't know all those answers, but if we take a step forward, it would kind of go in the right direction, and God really blessed. So Pastor Bill, I know you are retired.
I am.
But if Berean or any church you are part of were considering another capital campaign, would you recommend Church Growth Services? I know I would highly recommend them.
Yeah, I would too, Tim. In fact, as I've been using the term redeploy, not retire, I'm hoping to do some consulting work with churches, and I will gladly recommend Church Growth Services both for their capital campaigns and for their materials and their teaching on generosity. Their skill and their expertise and their hand-holding throughout the process were invaluable.
Well, Pastor Bill, I know you were a little hesitant about doing a capital campaign, especially as you were headed for your redeployment. But what would you say to a fellow pastor who is on the fence regarding the use of Church Growth Services to help their church with a capital campaign?
Well, to those fellow pastors, I think I would say you need to talk to Church Growth Services and find out who they are and what they're all about. Maybe even contract them for a pre-assessment, because as you work with them, they'll help you discern whether or not you should move ahead. And there is a lot of work involved, and there's a cost financially, but it is worth it to do the campaign with excellence. It's a lot of work, but with God's direction and Church Growth Services' help, you can do it. So take on the challenge. Tim, as we wrap this up, if you were to choose a word picture or a metaphor to describe our consulting partnership with Church Growth Services, what would that be?
I think as I think of Mike and Church Growth Services, it was like a wise father. He gave us advice, encouraged us what the path would look like, showed us how to walk that path, but also allowed us to choose the path and how we walked it. They didn't dictate any part of it. He was praying with us and for us, encouraging us along the way, and I just think that wisdom and guidance in a very gentle, kind, and wise, experienced way was really the metaphor, I would say, from my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. In a lot of ways, meeting with him was kind of like having somebody else on staff to just kind of walk us through what needed to be done. So, hey, thanks for letting us share with you, and hope this is an encouragement for you as you think about possibly doing a capital campaign with Church Growth Services.